how to reduce your backlog. Oh my gosh, I wish I'm going to at some point have to do an entire course on this, because I feel like backlogs are such a way of the way that we do our work that it's insane. It's a problem we have got to fix. We've got to move away from having so many backlogs, and we have to move away from our comfort around having so many backlogs. It's a sign that you have a bottleneck. It's a sign there's something in front of you that you're waiting on. Now, let's talk first about prioritizing your backlog. I am sure, since you have a backlog and are watching this video, whether that's a maintenance work order, whether that's a call center or a service center, that you have requests being made and you need to go out and do that work or participate in that work or make some kind of decision, those backlogs are growing, right? So what we want to do is we want to have control over those backlogs, and we want to reduce them as much as possible. We want to make sure that we're only touching these items once, or touching them as few times as we possibly can. Now, the first thing that you need to do is you really need to understand your priorities. So if you haven't yet, and you have any kind of priority ranking like P1, P2, P3, you need to define what is a P1, what is a P2. Now, it's not just defining it, it's enforcing it. So when I put in something that's a P2 as a P1, someone needs to come to me and say, why was this input? This can't be run through the P1 process, right? So make sure that you have clear definitions about your priorities. Now, the next thing that you can do, this is one strategy that you can take. I think of it as a slide, okay? So that you take your backlog and you push everything to the front, right? You push everything to some kind of a decision point. And after that decision point, it's like going down a slide. Your work order, your service order is going to be fixed. It's going to be worked on. So we are only taking in the work that we know that we have the resources to do. We aren't starting work that we can't do, right? What we often see kind of in this first example here is you see this unbalance, that each work center has allowed their backlog, or each activity, each process step has allowed the backlog to just kind of live as it needs to. That we don't have a decision point that says at this point, work will be let in. And then what happens is in each of those process steps, we're reprioritizing our work, which makes it even more confusing. And it makes it really hard to give our customers lead time to know how long it's going to take for us to get through that backlog. By moving the work forward and only allowing into the process the amount of work orders that we can actually complete, you're going to have more control over those process steps, so that you know if a work order is being worked on, it will be completed in 1 week or 2 weeks, or we have a better idea of where it's at in the process, and it's a priority. If there's a barrier, if something comes up, we are raising our hand and we are eliminating it, because we can't start another work order until that one's finished, right? So this is the first thing in your prioritization. Now, the second thing, or that's the first thing, is prioritization. The second thing is taking action. Make things visual as much as possible. Make it clear that this is something that's important to your organization. Look at your backlog as a whole. Do you have a lot of duplicates? Get rid of the duplicates. Do you have a lot of aged work orders? Either work those aged work orders through the system or get rid of them. Don't let them sit around. Do you have low priority work orders? Why? Why are those low priority work orders in there? Are you ever going to get to your P3s? Are you ever going to get to your low priority work orders? If you're not, why are they there? What's your plan to make sure that they move through the system with the other work orders? Now, one of the ways to start to reduce your backlog, to start to get a handle on your backlog, like I said, is taking action. And one of those actions that you can take is you can make it visual. Now, we have a lot of management systems now that are electronic that make it very easy for us to lose our work orders, make it very easy for us to not be able to see all the work that's out there. We don't want that. We want to be very clear about all of our active work orders. So depending how big your team is, depending how the size of your work orders, how many you're completing each week, depends how you can make this as visual as possible. In the example I have here, this is like a Kanban board. So we simply have each process step. This team had over 100 work orders that they were working on, and they were only finishing like 10 a week was the goal, right? They needed to finish like 10 a week, and they were maybe finishing like 5. So what was happening? It was really hard to see and understand because it was all electronic. So we took one Post-it for each work order and we threw it up on the board. And what we saw in this spot that's circled is that that step went all the way to the floor, all the way to the floor. Most of our work orders were stuck in that step, about 50% of them. So we knew that we had to fix that step. And the reason that step was so high is we borrowed from those employees to start new jobs. So we didn't finish jobs before we started new ones. So it's really important that we have some of those limits to how much work in progress we can handle, which is why it's important to have that gate that only allows us to work on how much we can actually get done, so that we can eliminate those barriers, so that we can help our team be successful, so that we can get back to our customers in a timely manner.